to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Hello and welcome to the MMA Fan Show. I'm Stu Whiffin. Joining me always, Blake Harrison. How are you?
Very good, mate. Very good. How are you?
I'm all right. I've sneaked into the wife's office today, so this is why my surroundings look a little different from usual, because we're both flat out with work at the moment, so we haven't been able to get into the studio this week. And so the troopers that we are, as busy as we are, we've still made time to come on and discuss what went down at UFC 312.
Is your wife's office nicer than your office? Is that?
Yeah, it's way nicer.
Yeah. Is that just like, is it like just tidier and cleaner, or is it like?
Yeah, I mean, if you look there,
kitted out.
She's an educated woman, so there's like books and stuff,
books.
and like.
Oh no, I feel intimidating already.
What have I
books.
got? You go in my old office, and all you can see is like an old boxing head guard and a couple of boxing gloves and some like caps that I can't be bothered to take home. So
the most highbrow thing you have in your office is a picture of Scroobius Pip. And I genuinely mean that as a compliment to Pip.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to talk about what you've got, do we? What's that? Just a BAFTA? Is it just a BAFTA?
Oh yeah, there's a BAFTA there. It's not in shot.
Yeah, a British Comedy Award. Is that down the bottom there?
Yeah, next to an enemy award. Yeah. And a fan sent me this.
That is cool.
You know those Funko Pops of Nil for In Between Us?
That is cool. I'll tell you what, if you ain't watching it on
cool,
YouTube, head over to YouTube and have a look at that, because that is so cool. Really,
I was well chuffed with that. That was very, very kind of him to send me that.
I can't believe you've not moved that photo of you scoring the goal in Soccer Aid in the background of this shot. I'm surprised.
Oh yeah, because you've been to my house and you've seen that. I've got that. It's a black and white photo of me celebrating. It is epic.
It's an amazing photo.
So many fans are in the background cheering, and you've got the goalie lying on the floor. The ball's gone past him, and I'm just there, our arms outstretched, waiting for glory to arrive. Yeah, good stuff.
I reckon everybody in that, because you had long hair then, didn't you?
Yeah,
and I reckon like nobody recognised that it was you. I reckon everyone was like, Joe Wicks just scored that penalty there.
You know what? Joe Wicks has lost a lot of weight. He's got quite skinny, hasn't he? Joe Wicks looks emaciated. What's wrong with Joe? Well, I'm not buying this book. Jesus, I'll lose 5 stone. I share an office with Kerry. So, like, basically, some of this stuff gets moved out of here from time to time so that she has all her mindfulness stuff all around her, because sometimes she has, like, clients over to the house and in the office, and it would look weird, someone coming over and being like, why is there a fucking BAFTA over there?
What is it, this old thing?
Oh, yeah, I won that for my mindfulness show that I did years ago. But yeah, let's talk 312. UFC 312.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Let's talk Fat Candy.
Fat Candy.
So, Fat Candy sponsor this show, and what they do is freeze-dried sweets, not squeeze-dried fruits. Freeze-dried sweets, and it's all your childhood faves. It's your Skittles, it's your Cola Cubes, it's your drumsticks and your Wham bars, and all freeze-dried, so they explode into these crunchy, crispy, sweety treats. And what we do is we give you a little discount, and that discount code is Sweet MMA. And then what that does, when you over your basket, when you put your order in, pop that little discount code in, and it'll save you a couple of pound notes. And more importantly, it shows that you listen to this show, and it's working. The fact that they're sponsoring this show, I mean, between me and you, we know it's working, because they sent us a message saying that you lot have been really generous and have been smashing that discount code. So yeah, head over to fatcandy.com and use that discount code SWEETMMA. Right, UFC 312, Blake Harrison. How much of it do we actually want to talk about?
Right, well, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
In the lead up to this, I thought this was probably, we will look back at the end of 2025, and unless something goes horribly wrong, I think we're going to look back at this and go, 312 was by far the worst pay-per-view of the year. outside of the top 2 fights, there wasn't much interesting me. I have watched the entire main card, and I did watch one other prelim fight, but I haven't watched the others. And I know there's probably some really lovely moments and some good young fighters on there and all that kind of stuff. I'm very busy at the moment. There's stuff going on, and there was just nothing pulling me in. And maybe that sounds unprofessional considering we're literally doing a show about it. But I think it's okay for us as, we're not media members per se. We're not people that work for a website or a news publication where we get paid money to watch this stuff. We just do this show because we enjoy talking about MMA. We've got this lovely, tiny little community we're now building that listens to us talk about MMA and send us questions and interact with us from time to time. And I think we are fans, ultimately. This is the MMA fan show, not the MMA journalism show. So I think
it's not really got that much of a sort of ring to it, that, has it?
Nah, it doesn't. No, I mean, no.
Welcome to the MMA journalism show. People are turning off at that point.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably turning off our show anyway. But my point is that I think we reflect...
Is anyone listening?
Is this just me and you? This is just a voice note on WhatsApp. That's all this is. This isn't a podcast. It's a voice note on WhatsApp. I think we reflect what the fans are thinking a lot of the times because we are just fans. And I think it's okay to turn around and go, do you know what? I only watched the fights I was interested in, and especially if you were in like America, Canada, wherever like that, and you have to pay like $80 for this pay-per-view, and you went, not this month, thank you. So I'm going to spend that $80 on going out for a meal or something like that. Then like, fair play to you. Go and do that. We don't owe the UFC anything. We pay for a product and they supply that product. And if we feel like the product they're supplying isn't good enough for particularly, as we say, the American fans paying like 80 quid, it's okay to just not give them that money and go and do something else.
You said something before we pressed record when we was chatting earlier that in regards to the fights. Now, I think I mentioned on the previous show the fact that Justin Taffer was the third fight from the top sort of gives you an inkling as to, okay, so it's only going to go downhill from there as well. And it's like,
and it wasn't Justin Taffer against Derek Lewis or Taito Ivasa or someone lower ranked in the heavyweight division that is a lovable character.
Yeah,
it was against a debutant.
Yeah,
Talison Teixeira is a debutant. I mean, he looked great. We'll get onto that fight, but it's his debut. But that's your featured fight on a pay-per-view main card. That says a lot.
Exactly. And you said something to go back to what the thing I was going to say was that you basically said the rest of the card didn't really have any implications as such. It wasn't like, if this guy wins this, then, he's next in line, or, he's going to go top 5 with a win here. It just didn't exist on this card. And there was a few other little things that were, fun, I guess, with the which I'm sure we'll touch on. But look, what we did get was 2 title fights, and and so should we start at the top with DDP versus Sean Strickland?
Let's do it. I mean, look, it was, I don't think as good as the first fight.
We're gonna go to war. You didn't go to war, did you?
He didn't. Strickland seemed not himself. Apparently he was struggling with a staph infection leading up to the fight. Maybe that had an impact on it. I don't know. But I think we predicted that despite the first fight being close, and I actually scored the first fight for Strickland, I favoured DDP in this one. I think he's getting better and better. And I think that there's something about Strickland where I just look at him sometimes and I wonder if mentally
he's got a
he
brain.
believes he should be champion. Yeah, that too. But he believes he should be champion. I don't know. There's something there. Like the Izzy fight was such a unique situation, and he never earned that title shot in the usual way. It was, DDP can't fight in that time frame. Sean will step in on short notice. We're short on challengers. Yeah. Then after that fight, in which he shocked the world and put on a phenomenal performance, I remember just watching the DDP fight and going, oh, Sean Strickland just looks weird. There's something jarring about him in those black and gold shorts. Those championship shorts it doesn't work with Sean Strickland in them. And he didn't exude champion at any point since he won the belt. It was almost like he never thought of himself as a champion in a way, because I don't know, I just didn't get that from him. Sometimes you get a guy like, and I know this is an extreme case, but Ilia Topuria, going into that fight with Volk, you go, he strikes me as a potential champion. Then he wins the belt, and the way he's behaved since, yes, he's obviously defended the title, but even before that, leading up to the Max fight, everything about him exuded, I'm here. I'm the champion. I am the champ. And Strickland never gave that impression to me. And then he goes away after the DDP defeat, fights Paulo Costa in a split decision win. Again, we covered this in the preview show. A guy that has won one of his last 5, Paulo Costa, and that was against Luke Rockhold in one of genuinely the funniest fights you will ever watch. If you have not rewatched Paulo Costa versus Luke Rockhold, do yourself a favor and go and have a laugh for 15 minutes, because it's the weirdest, funniest fight you will watch. And that's what gave Sean Strickland his title fight. A rematch, sorry, was a win, a split decision win over Paulo Costa. So there was just nothing about this in the lead up to it that made me go, yeah, Strickland's going to win this. I always thought DDP was going to win it, despite how I scored the first fight.
Mm. The fight itself, I thought was really boring. I thought Strickland done what Strickland does, which is not what he says. He never goes to war. He just tucks himself in that Philly shell and throws jabs. And that's basically what we got. But he threw all them jabs, and his corner was screaming at him to let that right hand go as well. And it felt like he didn't really do that till right towards the end. And also Dricus, for me, I mean, people say that Sean Strickland's an unorthodox fighter and it's quite awkward to work him at. Like, that style it somehow, can get him wins over people like Izzy, which you just think, how? But, it is effective in its weirdness. And DDP, I don't think he ever looks like crisp, or it doesn't look like there's a lot of finesse in the way that he throws and the way he moves. But again, it's unorthodox and messy, but really effective. And he looks like he's blowing out of his arse after 2 rounds. His mouth's open. I know he's had trouble with his nose before. But I thought he looked exhausted, but he kept throwing, and he was just, I just think it was a really messy fight as well. I didn't think anything really, apart from the shot that broke Strickland's nose, apart from that, I didn't think there was anything that was super exciting or particularly engaging.
I mean, I wouldn't totally agree with that. I felt like DDP did what he had to do, and I felt like he was sort of matching Sean Strickland in some ways in terms of output. I think both of them had a heavier or a more output in the first fight. Their numbers were far greater. And in this fight, Strickland just couldn't really get going for whatever reason. Didn't throw as many strikes as he did in the first fight. I think it's almost half the strikes he threw from the first fight. And so DDP didn't have to throw as much. And I think if Sean had thrown more, DDP would have thrown more. And I think Dricus did have a couple of interesting moments in the fight, or interesting tactics in the fight, which I quite liked. And that left body kick, and it was even one or two of them that was a question mark kick. And again,
he threw that a few times. I forgot about that.
For a guy built like Dricus, and for a guy that we take the mick out of sometimes in terms of looking, I mean, what is it? Dana White came out with the thing of he fights like a white man dances. He's all over the shop. You just don't know what he's doing. As a man that can dance, that's white. I take offense at that, Dana White. But I hear what he's saying. And for Dricus to throw those question mark kicks and it's hard from the league leg. I mean, look, I obviously have only done like a few sessions of Muay Thai over the years.
Strap in. Here we go.
No, but I think my question mark kick from the rear leg is pretty good.
Right.
I think it's not bad.
So basically, you're saying you would have took out Sean Strickland.
No, what I'm saying is that to do it with your lead leg, maybe people that do Muay Thai and stuff like that will correct me on this, but I think doing it off your lead leg is really hard. Like to throw a good question mark kick with your lead leg, I don't know. I find that really difficult. Rear leg, fine. Lead leg, I'm all over the shop. And I think it's quite skillful to do that. Granted, I'm coming at it from a very low level, and he's obviously the best middleweight in the world at the moment. So people might be laughing at me saying that do Muay Thai regularly. But I personally think, and you maybe would agree or disagree, lead leg question mark kicks I think are harder to do. And I just was impressed with that. And I was impressed with his kicking game in general. I think he was chewing up the calf at points as well. And that is an extra little wrinkle that we maybe haven't seen as much of from DDP, who a lot of the time when we think about him, we think of slightly sloppy but very aggressive wrestling, or we think of his head's kind of down, his arms are flailing all over the shop, but he can land strong punches. So I actually was impressed with elements of DDP's game, and like there's no controversy over this one. This was a very obvious win. As you say, broke Strickland's nose at one point. Credit to Strickland in terms of the fact that he got his nose broken. You could tell it was really bothering him, and he tried to reset it. I think I've seen a clip of Strickland and DDP chatting after the fight where he said DDP was kind of taking the mick out of him. And he was like, no, I reset my own nose. Then you came in for a takedown and you knocked it back out knocked it back up, broke it again, basically. And I was like, Jesus, that sounds horrible. So good on Strickland for that. But he just didn't mount anywhere near enough offense. He didn't change his game plan enough from the first fight. Like there's more that he could have done. He could have had more output. He could have tried to throw in a takedown here and there. He didn't do any of it. And it must be frustrating for Eric Nixick. Eric Nixick must be there going, you can compete with this guy. We've seen it in the first fight. You just need to listen to me and you'll do all right. But he just doesn't. So I don't know what you can say about that.
I don't know who the other guy is in his corner. And I'm presuming like, maybe he's his striking coach and Eric's just his head coach. But he was just like giving it to Strickland like in between every round. And Strickland was really engaging with him. And then he'd go like, right, you go. And he'd go over to the other guy in the corner would go, right, what you need to do is Strickland just walked off every time and just didn't listen to him at all. And I did feel sorry for this guy. I was thinking, he's just got his moment. And every time he goes, right, what you need to do here? Strickland was not paying any attention whatsoever.
Oh man!
It was the first time he done it. I thought, oh, that's quite horrible. That's on telly as well. And then it happened again and again and again. Maybe Strickland should have listened, but I don't know. I don't think Sean Strickland turned up 100%.
No, I don't think so.
Because we know that he's got pretty decent cardio, and his output is normally pretty relentless. Yep. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe Dricus just he's that difficult to go. I still find it really weird that we're looking at potentially the two best middleweights on the planet, and it's Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis, which is just odd. And
yeah,
if you was to show a lot of people that fight, I don't know, and then you was to show them a prime Izzy or a prime Bobby Knuckles or, an Anderson Silva, I just think like they'd be like, that guy he's the champ. And like, I don't know, like you say, there's all, you can rip it apart as much as you want. He's the champ and he's beaten everyone.
I don't think you can rip it apart. I mean, he's put together such a resume now.
I mean, it's crazy.
Dricus is really putting together a very, very impressive resume. I mean, let's just go back a little bit. So, I mean, he is undefeated in the UFC. His last loss was Roberto Soldic, who's very good over in KSW. That was in 2018. Since then, Marcus Perez, Trevin Giles. This is in the UFC. Brad Tavares, solid middleweight. Darren Till, up and down, take that or leave it. Derek Brunson, Robert Whittaker, Sean Strickland, Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland. I mean, his next title fight is surely Khamzat Chimaev. If he were to beat Khamzat Chimaev and go Whittaker, Strickland, Izzy, Strickland, Chimaev, I can't think of, are there many better runs?
Probably not.
I know there's longer runs, but in terms of beating people that are kind of the best of the best at the time, I don't think you get much better than that, can you?
So you might have heard this better than me, but afterwards, they kept saying it does that thing where they mute out bits of post-fight speeches. I guess more so for Strickland because I presume he was just talking more bollocks. But with DDP, was he making noise about Pereira?
He has been for a while. Like Pereira said something as well. I mean, it's not going to happen. They're going to do the Chimaev fight. But yeah, he had that thing because that whole "there's no pact between lions and men's" is an Achilles quote. And then he had another Achilles quote looking at Pereira saying, is something like, "Is there no one else? Is there no one else?" Pointing that at Pereira. Pereira apparently has come back on socials saying, "Let's do it at 205. Dricus has said, "Yeah, great." This is not going to happen. Pereira's got his hands full with Ankalaev. The next guy up in the middleweight division is Khamzat Chimaev. And I think we maybe discussed this in the preview show. Dana White came out a little while ago talking about, I know a guy, don't worry. Khamzat Chimaev's getting into the country. Obviously, a reference to his relationship with Donald Trump, who, is executive orders all over the place. Who knows? An executive order to get Khamzat Chimaev into the country. Who knows? But it looks like Khamzat, I don't think will have as much trouble getting into America as he did, as he has done of late. So I think that means that you can make this fight in Vegas in July or something at International Fight Week, and it would be huge. Dricus versus Khamzat would be a massive, massive fight. Makes all the sense in the world. It's a fight that has to happen, and it should happen next. That is it for me. There's no big shock, no big, who should be next? It's Khamzat. It's got to be Khamzat. Maybe you wait till October and do it in Dubai or Abu Dhabi or somewhere like that. But I think maybe it happens earlier. And if you're Dricus, I think you probably want it in a bit more neutral ground. So that's what I think might happen. I think what's going on next for Strickland is maybe a lot more interesting in terms of where he goes next, because you can either redo the Izzy fight because they're both coming off losses. It also, neither of them are getting a title shot anytime soon. It's a rematch people will want to see. Or you do maybe Rob Whittaker, because again, Rob's not getting a title shot anytime soon. And Strickland versus Rob Whittaker is a fresh matchup at the top of the division. I think we'd all like to see that fight. Or, a bit like with Rob and with Izzy, as we've spoken about before, Strickland's in that position where it's like, should you be giving this guy one of those up-and-coming contenders? The Carl Borralios and the Fluffy Hernandezes and people like that.
They were sparring lots in the lead up to this.
Carl Borralio and Strickland. Well, maybe they won't do that fight then, but there are other contenders. I mean, Imavov, I think, has done enough to earn a title shot. And he can just wait for the Khamzat fight and then come in after that. But Carl Borralio is there on a really good win streak. Cannonier's fighting this weekend. I mean, he is a lot older, and I'm not sure that he should be in the title picture anytime soon, but he's got a fight coming up against Gregory Rodriguez this weekend.
I think the Borralio fight's interesting.
Yeah, but again, maybe they're friends now, and maybe that won't happen. I don't know.
They were saying...
But Fluffy Hernandez is ranked 12, and I think he should get a decent shot at one of those guys just to try and throw him up the rankings and see what happens. And Bo Nickel is 15. Give him a big fight some point soon. I think when we look at the middleweight division, we're seeing a lot of older names clogging up spots there that I think maybe they're best days are behind them. Now, Sean Strickland is possibly one of those. Sounds harsh, but I think maybe Izzy's one of those. Rob Whittaker is maybe one of those as well. Jared Cannonier.
They're all very fair things to say, mate.
Yeah, Jared Cannonier, Marvin Vittori, Paulo Costa. They're all people that I go, right, let's get the fresh blood in now. Let's get in the Bo Nichols, the maybe a little bit Michel Pereira. I know he lost his last fight to Hernandez, but I'm a huge Michel Pereira fan. Anthony Hernandez is one of them. The Carbaralios and Imovovs, like these guys, I think should be fighting the top guys in the division and hopefully getting title shots off the back of it if they win. So that's what I'd like to see ideally for Strickland. But I do think there are big fights still in Strickland's future, and that could be the rematch with Izzy, and it could be a fight with Rob Whittaker. Either one of those guys could be a 5-round co-main event on a pay-per-view. Either one of those fights could be a featured bout on a pay-per-view. Either one of those fights could headline a fight night, and people would be really excited about that as a headliner for a fight night. So, yeah, Strickland has a lot of options, I think.
Okay. There was another
before we move on to it, did you see the blood bogey that came out of Strickland's nose?
Was not nice, was it?
Oh, you did see it. So
Yeah.
as he was getting interviewed or whatever. Oh, and the thing is, my family were up watching it at the time. And already, Kerry always has a thing of like, it's my wife, Kerry, she always has a thing of like, oh my God, like it's one thing for them to be bleeding, but when they're covered in the other person's blood, I was like, yeah, no, that is pretty gross. And then all of a sudden, the blood's all over Sean Strickland's face, and she was like, that is just so disgusting. Why aren't they stopping the fight? And I was like, if you want to see something, let me show you Rory McDonald versus Robbie Lawler.
Yeah.
But she was like, I can't believe it. And then we were all watching it. I've got like 7-year-old and an 11-year-old, and all of a sudden, the blood bogey came out, and everyone just went, oh. It was so funny and also so disgusting. But yeah, there you go. I had to mention the blood bogey. It needed its moment in the sun. You're going to go on to another title fight.
Absolutely. And so many people were saying that Tatiana Suarez and her wrestling credentials was going to take that belt from Zhang Weili.
I was one of them.
Not all of us. The other one of us said that Zhang is one of the greatest to ever do it. And oh my lordy, lordy, lord. I mean, how incredible was Zhang?
She was incredible. Obviously this fight did not go how I thought it was going to go. But one thing I said, and again, I was wrong about this. One thing I said is, early on, we'll find out what way this fight's going to go. Early on, we'll know. Either Suarez will get her down and we'll be like, oh, there you go. That's the fight. She's just going to get her down because Zhang can't handle it because Suarez is such a good wrestler. Or Zhang will stuff the takedowns and Suarez is in big trouble because she can't hang with her on the feet. Suarez took her down in that first round and I was like, there you go. I was right. And then she gets off no damage, no submission attempts. Some people are even saying they scored the first round for Zhang. I wouldn't go that far. I think the first round was Suarez's round, but I hear ya. There was very little damage done by Suarez. And then after that, Suarez just could not get close to taking her down, really. And it got to the point where even Zhang was able to get Suarez down and beat her up on the ground. And you were just like, how is this possible? She's so good.
She broke Suarez. And I think
she did.
Like quite early on, you could see that she was just like, I have no respect for your wrestling anymore. Like you're playing, you're in my arena now and there's levels to this. And she was just stuffing his out. But then she was just sort of throwing her around as well. She had like, and every time she was spinning her in midair and then landing on top. It was so impressive.
So I never gave her a chance to hang with Suarez on the ground. I thought that would be the undoing of Zhang. If she can keep it on the feet, she'll win this fight. But I thought if you start going to the ground with Suarez, like she did with Esparza, I thought that's where Suarez is going to get you because Suarez is better than Esparza on the ground. And nope, she was able to handle her, deal with her, no problems at all. Suarez just did not have an answer. And I don't want people to think too little of Suarez because I worry that people out there haven't seen her fight enough because she gets injured all the time and she doesn't compete regularly. She's had 18 months out of the cage. I do think that's a long time. And it's a huge ask to go have 18 months out of the cage with injuries, then go and fight the best in the world. Like that's harsh.
Also say that Zhang isn't the most active of champs either. Like she's not been fighting super regular either. But what I love, right, is nothing made me happier than hearing us shouting Aussie, Aussie, Aussie at the end.
Oh, that was great.
So good. And it's like
so good.
Fans are really, really took to Zhang. Like the Aussie fans were loving her. And it's like, what's not to love about her? She seems like such a nice person. And she's fantastic to watch to watch fight. She's just got a really nice manner about her. She always is super respectful. Suarez at the end of the fight looked like she did not want to have anything to do with Zhang. You know, as soon as that fight finished and Zhang went over to her, she just literally looked like a broken fighter. And I think even sort of rounds 4 and 5, you could just see that the fight in her had died. And it was like, I don't know how to get out of this. Like I'm being taught a lesson here. And yeah, I mean, like you say, like Suarez has been, you know, she just took her first defeat. So that says a lot about her career to date. And I think, you know, we're going to see a lot more exciting stuff from her. But as it stands at the moment, I think Zhang just absolutely stamped it in the UFC that she's arguably the strawweight GOAT. I think. I was
going to ask you that question. Is this defense the one that makes her the GOAT now? We talked about this in the preview show. I think it was Joanna, 5 title defenses, but losses to Rose and Zhang. Rose, 2-time champion, but I think only maybe 1 title defense, but 2 wins over Zhang. And then you got Zhang, who I think has just got maybe her, I want to say 3rd or 4th title defense. I'm not sure. Who did she beat? She beat Lemos, Yan Jianan, and now Suarez. Is that right? So there's only 3 title defenses she's had, I think. Because I think first time round she fought, after she won the belt in the first occasion, she fought Rose and lost. So I think it might be 3.
In her, she's, so she
beat Esparza for the belt the second time.
Yeah, so she beat, so before that she beat Joanna again with that fucking back fist that was insane.
But then that wasn't a title fight.
No, then obviously got the belt off of Esparza, then beat Lemos, and then Yan Jianan, and then Suarez. So
So 3 title defenses, but a 2-time champion and wins over Joanna. It's the 2 losses to Rose that make you go, I'm not sure, but maybe she is a strawweight GOAT. I think 1 more win at strawweight, and she is the strawweight GOAT. She beats, Virna Jandiroba could be next at 115 if she beats Yan Jianan. She'd be on a 5-fight win streak. But there's, other than Virna Jandiroba, and there's not much appetite for that fight, I don't think. But Virna Jandiroba being on a 5-fight win streak, if she beats Yan Jianan, she still needs to do that. That could be a solid title defense for Zhang Weili. But I don't think people are overly clamoring for it. So does she move up to 125?
There's some fun to be had there.
It's very harsh on Manon Fiorot if Zhang Weili leapfrogs her and gets a fight against Shevchenko. However, if you are the UFC, there's a lot of talk about this being the year that the contracts are up for their kind of TV rights deal with ESPN, and Netflix have been sniffing around. There's $1 billion, like literally $1 billion up for grabs here for the UFC if they can get the right contracts in place with the right companies. So I don't know. Does the UFC pull the trigger on it and say Shevchenko versus Zhang Weili is way bigger and better than Manon Fiorot versus Zhang Weili if Manon beats Shevchenko? So do they just make that happen? It's incredibly harsh on Manon Fiorot, who's on a 7-fight win streak and has beat the likes of Rose Namajunas and Erin Blanchfield and people like that. She deserves that shot. No one deserves that shot at flyweight more than Manon Fiorot. However, if you're the UFC and you're in the business of making money and you're Shevchenko, who doesn't have maybe a huge amount of time left on the clock at like 37, 38 years old, are you looking at that and going, oh, Zhang's smaller, maybe an easier fight, maybe not, I'm not sure, but the money is there. And I would like to see it. I'd love to see Shevchenko versus Zhang. I would feel really bad for Manon Fiorot, though. She's done more than enough to earn a title shot. What do you want to see?
I want to see Chevy versus Zhang. Like, oh my God. Like, imagine how good
compassion
that would be.
for Manon Fiorot at all.
Like, no, obviously, you know, she's look, there's a lot of fighters that deserve their shot that get, you know, put in a room and they have to wait because bigger names with more pay-per-views attached to them always get the opportunities. And as you say, if you announce that Chevy's fighting Manon Fiorot, I don't think that sets the world on fire for your casuals that might all meet up and chip in for a pay-per-view. After that performance there from Zhang versus, you know, Chevy, that is exciting. That's got a lot of, you know, belts and yeah, give me that fight. Give me that fight. Suarez, I think, you know, there's lots more for her to do, and I think, you know, another win, and I don't know, potentially she could be knocking on the door of another title shot again.
I mean, look, her only loss is to Zhang. She didn't look amazing, but I think that's just because Zhang was so good. I don't think that's actually a knock on Suarez. I do think there's a world in which they could go, Zhang has moved up. Maybe she'd vacate. I'm sure she'd want a picture with both belts. I don't think she'd want to vacate. But if they say we're going to do Chevy v Zhang, maybe later in the year, because they still haven't booked a Manon v Chevy fight or anything like that. Like, I don't know when that would be and how quickly Zhang could turn around. But if they book that fight, maybe they do an interim fight. And I would have thought if Virna Jandiroba beats Zhang Jianan, she has to be one half of that interim title fight. Suarez is probably the other one. You could always say to Rose, go on, drop down. Drop down and do that. Rose versus anyone is still a bigger fight than Suarez, Jandiroba, or anyone else in that division. And you could say, go and get your belt back. Go on, straight into a title fight. And maybe Rose would do it, but I do think she wants to achieve something up at 125. It'd be interesting. I mean, hell, if you're Rose Namajunas and Zhang Weili pops up to 125 and wins the belt, you've got such a claim to a shot. You're like, I beat her twice at 115. I'm the kryptonite to Zhang Weili. Give me the shot.
Not anymore.
Well,
not
yeah,
anymore.
but that's the storyline, though, isn't it? That's the narrative, and I'd want to see it.
Yeah, I don't think Rosie's the fighter that she was a few years back when she beat Zhang, and I don't think Zhang is that fighter anymore. We've seen what Zhang is. We see it a couple of days ago, and it's so well rounded and so effective.
Yeah.
And I think she steamrolls Namajunas should that ever happen again.
Well, the other thing to consider is Zhang Weili is 35 years old. We talk about 35, that magic number in the lower weight classes. Maybe it's less relevant with female divisions because we have seen older champions in those divisions. It's more of a male problem. But at some point, you will start to slow down. The rest of the division might catch up with her. We'll have to see what happens. But Zhang Weili, if she's not the GOAT at 115 yet, she's probably one win away from being the GOAT at 115. And she looks phenomenal. Let's move on to what we did watch on the rest of the main card. I don't want to hang on this for too long, though. Talison Teixeira, as we mentioned earlier, fantastic debut, knee to the body, really powerful elbow against the fence, and Tafa just crumbled. About 30-odd seconds, I think that fight was. Great debut for Talison Teixeira. Not much more to say about that. You?
No, just thought it was very effective. And to be honest, I wasn't bothered about that fight. The fact that it ended after 30 seconds meant excellent to get Zhang on a lot sooner than I hoped.
That's exactly what I was thinking as well. Cruz, Bellato was a fun fight. It was really fun. It ended in a majority draw, 10-8 for Cruz in round 1, and then Bellato came back. It was very scrappy. It felt very old school. I felt like I was watching a fight from like 2006.
Good shout that is, mate.
It was a really old school, tired, dogged, my will is better than your will type fight. And yeah, it lacked some level of technical prowess, but it made up for it in fun entertainment. So I'm not knocking it at all.
Jimmy Cruz has got big legs, hasn't he?
Big legs. And he's also got a couple of draws in his last few fights as well. The guy can't quite get over the line there. Prado Matthews was another really fun fight. It was all action in round 1, really fun exchanges. Matthews doing really well there, and then called out Neil Magny, which, hey, no problem with that. Good call out. Prado does look a bit small for welterweight. I wonder if he should drop down to lightweight, but it's difficult that some people are those kind of in between weight classes, and it's tricky for him. We saw a similar thing with Kevin Lee years ago. That's the main card. Do you have anything you want to say about the main card?
No. That was.
How much of the prelims did you watch?
I'll be honest with you. I watched. What did I watch? Let's have a look. I watched the Wang fight.
I didn't see that. What did you think of that?
I really enjoyed that. And
that was Joker versus Batman, wasn't it? From
the
face-off.
Yeah, that was cool.
Did the Joker win that one then?
Wang. I keep saying Wang. Obviously, I like the little narrative of Thickness versus Topuria. So
that's the one I watched.
Yeah. So and I was just curious. It was great at the weigh-ins. It's really nice to see Volk and Topuria just hanging out, and I think Topuria, for all of the kind of smacky talk leading up to it, he knows, and he said that Volk's just how do you not think Volk's a nice guy? And and it was so good to see like the fans in Australia like just how much they adore Volk, and it was good. And it was good afterwards, seeing him chatting. He said, "When are you going to come on cooking with Volk?" He's like, "You can bring the wine to Puria." And it was like, I love shit like that, man. It's like, and I think it really made me warm more to Puria, because up until then I was like, "You're that mean man that
not tap Volk and Max,
not tap Volk and Max, you horrible man." But yeah, and the fact that obviously Topuria's brother was fighting, and Thickness was out of Volk's camp, and Volk was in his corner. So there was a fun little narrative at the weigh-ins and stuff like that. But I thought Topuria looked great.
I thought he looked fantastic. He's slightly older than Ilya, obviously less experienced. But he looked really good. He had good boxing, ripped to the body really well.
Slammed him.
Good defensive head movement. And then, in terms of the wrestling, good wrestling, superb belly-to-back suplex. I mean, we talk about takedowns being just a change of position. You do not score. You do score for that one because it's impactful and it does damage. That is a takedown that will score you points on the judges' scorecards. Absolutely slammed him on his head. And Thickness at points looked good. He just didn't have the power, and he just wasn't as skillful as Topuria. It almost felt a little bit to me like a small showing of what the fight will be like in the rematch. Not in terms of necessary results. I do think that Topuria will probably knock Volk out. But just that thing of like, Volk's so skillful. He moves around so well, but he's not got knockout power. Whereas Ilya does. And just the difference between Thickness and Topuria was that I felt like everything Topuria landed had meaning and bad intentions and took an effect on Thickness. Whereas Thickness's shots, Topuria was either moving away from them with great head movement, or if they landed, they didn't seem to bother him too much. And I feel like there's going to be a similar narrative with Volk v Topuria. I think Volk, he might clip Topuria a few times, but I think he's just going to walk through it. And when Topuria lands, it will be game over. And that is what I worry about with that fight. And I I just sort of don't want to see it as much as I know Volker's earned it.
It's a really miserable ending to the podcast, isn't it?
A miserable end to, let's be honest, quite a miserable card, really. Yeah. Other than Zhang and a little bit DDP, there's not much that I'm overly excited about with the card we just watched. This weekend, we've got Jared Cannonier against Gregory Rodriguez. Could be a fun fight. The Bonfim brothers are on that card. Trying to think what else is going on, but I'm not sure. But I'm sure there's some fun little moments on that card. But again, I'm not sure there's anything to like write home about. But I think it's fun. I think it's okay. It's not a bad fight night card.
There's nothing that
Calvin Cater, Yusuf Zalal will be fun. That'll be a good fight.
Oh, Angela Hill's on the card.
Oh, yeah?
Yep, versus Ketlin Souza.
Ketlin Souza.
Edmund Shabazian's fighting.
Yeah.
I forgot Cater was fighting on that card. All right. That's not as bad as I thought.
Yes, that's not a bad card, but I'm trying to think. The next pay-per-view will be 313, which I believe is in March, and that is Pereira against Ankalaev. Finally, Ankalaev getting the title shot that he deserves. Trying to think in order of what's going on.
Well, as well as that, before that, we've got Cejudo versus Yudong Song, and you've got Hernandez versus Brendan Allen on that card. Barbosa versus Garcia. Oh, this is a good card. Like Curtis Blades is on that card. Ketlin Vieira.
Trying to pull it up now.
Cute Alabra. Modestus, he's fighting on that card. Bukakis, former guest of the show. Ricky Simon, former guest of the show, he's on. Andre Filico. It's a great card.
Yeah. Oh, Brendan Allen Hernandez. Yeah, that's a really good fight. And that has consequences. You think if Hernandez wins that fight, he's got to get something really big next. Again, maybe one of those veteran names that we spoke about, Izzy, Rob, Strickland. Gene Silver has looked great lately. He was one of those fight nerd guys that looked fantastic last year. Rob Font. Oh, Cruz is obviously out. Cruz is retired.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Like, we should shout out Dominick Cruz, who we're never going to get to see Dominick Cruz Jose Aldo now, which we've been banging on about for years that we'd love to have seen that fight happen. He popped his shoulder and it popped again, didn't it? Twice in camp. And the photo of his dislocated shoulder did not look nice.
No.
Yeah, but there's a
I want to talk about Cruz, but yeah, this is it Seattle cards, Song versus Cejudo. It's actually a really good card. There's some really great fighters on there. So yeah, looking forward to that one way more than this weekend coming up. But Dominick Cruz, as we were saying, probably one of the most hampered by injury and it kind of taking away from what we as fans could have seen from him, because despite Cruz being like a multiple-time champion, you almost feel like he could have done more. Mm-hmm. You feel like Dominick Cruz with a fresh bill of health and not the crazy amount of time that he spent injured on the sidelines could have been far and away the greatest bantamweight of all time. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people still think he is the greatest bantamweight of all time, but it would have been unquestionable. He would have had the title defenses to back it up had he stayed healthy. But unfortunately, that wasn't his journey. That wasn't what happened. And it's a shame for him.
And the WEC stuff, the beef he had with Faber was fantastic back in the day. Yeah. And obviously, doing what he done to TJ, fantastic. Like it was and there's a big career for him behind the microphone now. He seems to have got his feet well under the table there, and I think always does a pretty decent job as well.
Yep. There you go. As long as he knows the scoring criteria, because sometimes that has been my knock on Dominick Cruz, is sometimes he will talk about like, oh, that cut, he's won the fight because of that cut. No, mate, that happened in round one. There's other rounds that we now score.
God, you're bringing everyone down talking about Volk.
No,
we're trying to big up Dominick Cruz, and now you're literally raining on his retirement. Unbelievable, Blake.
No,
who's upset you today?
Oh, don't get me started. I'm just really hungry. I'm hangry. I didn't eat a proper lunch, and I'm really hungry. I'm sorry.
There we go.
Dominick Cruz and Sean Strickland and whoever else I've upset. I'm just really hungry. I need some food. All right.
All right. You go and get some dinner, mate. And we'll see you all next time. Thanks for listening. Click subscribe. Head over to Fat Candy and use that discount code SWEETMMA. And if you've got any questions for Blake and I, then sling us some questions on the comments on the YouTube page, or if you're on the socials, pop some questions to us via a DM on the Instagram account. And at some point in the future, we'll do another little Q&A episode, and it'd be great to have some questions all ready to go for that.
Great. All right. See you later, guys.
Hey.